Sound design is really important in video games. A rich audio landscape can really enhance a playthrough. It can give a feeling of atmosphere or moodiness. Some well-placed music can really help transform the player into another place. And sometimes things like environmental warnings are very helpful in playthrough in this playthrough and to create a sense of tension. Companion dialogue can really help bring the tutorials with you so that you're not sort of stuck in one place. You can have your companion explain how the world works along your journey. But sometimes there can be too much of a good thing, and audio design can start to become more of a hindrance or an annoyance than a benefit. So I wanted to talk about repetitive sounds in video games. Um, the one that like sticks out like the most would have to be like NPC dialogue, you know? I mean, like it is nice that when you go to a town and you interact with some vendors or a trainer or that sort of thing, that they have, like a one line of banter that's it's like, okay, that's a nice touch. This sort of sells it to me that that this person has like, some sort of place in this world, right? But sometimes, especially if you find that you return to the same vendor often, after a while, it's like, that's a funny line. That was a funny line 3 times. That stopped being funny the 10th time, but now it's weirdly funny the 25th. Enchantment, you know? Some may call this junk. Me, I call this treasure. It just Um, you know, I appreciate them being in there, but after a while, it can really start to annoy me. And the same happens like a lot with combat characters where you're fighting somebody and you never should have come here. Hold the line. I'm gonna get you. Like in the rear with the like, just over and over again. After a while, it's like, it goes from making the characters feel alive and interesting to making them like seem like NPCs, like bots all over again. There's some games that are memed for it more than others. Um, Stop right there, criminal scum, right? Um, and and that's almost like a testament to how much time people spend in those games that they have heard that line dozens or hundreds of times. So, like there must be something said for the positive that they can like provide, I mean, uh I've played games back in a time before like a lot of NPCs were dialogue or had voice dialogue because, file size mattered a lot more in the age of physical copies of games or, in earlier versions of console games. Voice files are, are huge. Um, so, like I remember the signpost NPCs where, you click on them to get different text options. So I do appreciate when a game is voiced. It is very nice to have like, diverse and interesting townspeople or, enemy types or to have companion characters come along for the journey and have a thing or two to say about the world. It's actually like really cool when there's like the party systems, your Dragon Age or like if you take a companion along in like an Elder Scrolls or Fallout game where, you arrive at a new place and you get like a special dialogue line for what that character thinks about the area. Like Dragon's Dogma does this a little bit. It and then sometimes you have a situation where it's like, okay, okay, I understand. I understand. I should do this thing, right? Do you think I should do this thing? Okay, thanks for telling me I should do this thing. I get it. It's fine, right? Um, and I think I think like in environments, like there's like a certain point where you can really create some tension. Like you can just have like a distant, well, and not that like people have phones anymore, but like a mostly quiet room with a phone ringing in the distance, or a barely audible alarm, uh, in the distance. But in a situation where you're gonna be there for a while, like, let's say that you are gonna be in an area for, I don't know, like 5 or 10 minutes even, like, unless it's like a really, really short, thing where it's like, "Okay, you've gotta get out of here within a minute," or like or a little bit longer than that, and that's the point where the constant alarm would be fine. It would kind of build the tension. But if you're just sort of meandering through and you're going to be there for like 10 minutes, danger, danger, like, alert, alert, like, okay, that's a lot, you know? It starts to completely pull you out of it where you're just like, okay, where is this audio file so I can delete it? Like you're not even thinking anymore about the game. You're just like, God, that's annoying. I'm gonna turn this sound down and just listen to some music instead. Or, it completely pulls you out, or it does for me. Um, like I really think it's like alarms if it's going to be that way for a while. So I was kind of thinking like, because at first I was just thinking it's annoying, get rid of it, right? But no, upon like further reflection, I realized that yeah, there is absolutely benefit to it. I mean, I would much rather like bring along a NPC with me to slowly explain how things do or how things work because I'm just not a person that will sit through a tutorial. If there's a chance or an option to skip a tutorial area, I typically do because I would rather run in unprepared, figure out how things work and fail if I'm going to fail, Like I just that it's a game and it's fun for me to have a situation that doesn't matter that I can fail in because I take a lot of other things so serious that it's nice to to have an outlet for experiencing failure in a way that doesn't have any real life consequences. So I understand that tutorials are important and and very helpful, especially because you can never assume that somebody coming into a game has played games before, or even if they've played some games before, have they played a game from that series before? Because each series has its own quirks and nuances that like you pick up over time. Like if you've ever played a Final Fantasy game, you know that like what you need soft for, or like what you need echo for, or what a phoenix down does, right? Like these are things that wouldn't make any sense if you were picking up the game for like the very first time because it is explained by characters in earlier um entries of the series, but like they don't do that as much in some of the more recent ones, and it's like, well, how do you know how do you know to do that? Like, are we back to reading tooltips, right? Because I honestly, like, I think tooltips are great because even if I've been told something, it is nice to have a post-it, like a pinned reminder of what it does, or like if I'm picking up a game that I haven't played in a while, it's nice to be able to mouse over a tooltip to see if how gear stat itemization, or how spell effects or anything has changed over time because the tooltips would have been updated with the patch, and I can just I can hop into, like, let's say an MMO I haven't played in a while, mouse over my gear and understand if it still does what I what it did when I originally put it on, because there is times that I've come back to a complete gear redo and and I was like, okay, these stats don't mean the same thing they used to, and now I gotta go re-gear before I go out in the world, you know? Um, So yeah, I I appreciate tooltips, but I do think that verbal tooltips, if you will, do have a place in games, and I we can't just totally get rid of them. But I do think that there should be some sort of understanding for like how frequently a line can be said before it gets annoying. Like it, um like, maybe if there's, like, a shopkeeper per se, like, if they have, like, a line to say, that's nice, but maybe they shouldn't say it every single time, right? Like, maybe, there should be a certain amount of interactions where they don't say the line. So it's like, "Oh, hey, I remember that joke," or, "Hey, it's been long enough that I don't remember that one now." Um, or, when companions have dialogue, right? "Hold the line." Perhaps they should have some sort of timeout on being able to say that voice line again because and especially like for enemy combat, like maybe keep it where, they only say it maybe once once per fight because especially, like, in some of the older games where, disk size mattered or, like, game size mattered, and there was a lot of reused enemy types, a lot of reused voice files, a lot of reused level design, you go in that same bunker and fight, slightly different arranged packs of the same mobs over and over, and after a while, it's like, "Okay, I've fought this exact guy like 10 times before on different planets, and I'm just not having a good time anymore." And it starts to kind of pull you out of the game and make you feel like you're just playing whack-a-mole at this point. Like you're no longer on an adventure doing on a mission having fun. You're just playing a video game. And for like, for the ones where that's what you're doing, that's completely fine. But, for like more of an RPG, you want a bit more immersion than that. There's definitely games where it doesn't matter, you know what you're there for and you just do that. That's not really, I mean, those have repetitive sounds too. So yeah, like they could definitely still benefit from just cutting back the frequency of them, I think is what I would like to see. And I suppose to some extent, maybe they have in more modern titles, and I've just been on a nostalgia game kick. So I've just been like playing older stuff recently. Um, but this is like this is kind of similar, but starting on like a slightly new topic. But also anytime that there's like a repetitive cutscene, uh, like there should just be like you a lot of them you can space bar to skip or something, or like press a button to skip. There should really be like a on-off toggle for whether or not you want cutscenes to replay. Like every single time you land on a planet in like a space travel game, maybe you don't want to see. Maybe you enjoy it, or maybe you don't. Right. So I'm not saying that they should like make it where you only get to see it once. I'm saying like if you're a person that doesn't want to see it like at all, maybe you should have an option to like skip all of them. But um, but I was thinking specifically, I guess it's like Monster Hunter, where every time you go back to camp and you want to have a meal, there's like an animation that'll play of like somebody cooking the food, and it's like, yeah, no thanks, or with the ships taking off, it's like, yeah, sometimes that's immersive, and sometimes it's like, you you go to a planet to like do one thing, and you've just been there, you've just seen the animation like a few minutes ago. You land, do something, and then take off to go back to where you are, and you're like, nah, I don't. It's not as majestic a few minutes later as it was a few minutes ago. Um, but it's not. it's not the end of the world to have like little annoyances like that. But but sometimes like I do feel like they can take away from the enjoyment of a game when they were meant to add to it. But yeah. Um maybe like, as unrealistic as it might be, um don't have alarms go off as frequent in a game as would make sense in a real life setting. Um, the the bane of my existence is when like a smoke detector starts to like run out of batteries because they're always like way high on the ceiling or somewhere where like it's not very convenient to immediately get to it, and there's that chirping sound that they do when they're low on batteries that makes you want to just take it apart so it stops chirping instead of actually replacing the batteries. There's that every I don't know how frequent it is, just that chirp that it'll do. It's very important to alert people that the battery is low in a life-saving device like that. But like the way that they choose to do it is like the most annoying sound ever. I suppose it works because you want to do something to deal with it, but like more times than not, I've just like knocked the thing down so it would stop making noise before I ever got a ladder or a chair to like get up to actually put new batteries in it. So, there was a point where it stopped doing its job because it was being annoying. I don't know. Um, but what about you? Do you feel like alarms add to like the enjoyment or like build up the tension? Do you like NPCs that are um will tell you like hit the tail, champion, hit the tail, like over and over again? Do you find that encouraging? Or are you just like, I'm sorry you're sworn to carry my burdens. Why don't you put down my burdens and go home, Lydia? Like, how do you feel about it? Um, take care.